All right, so for the first question, for the CPC exam, I know I can't bring scrap paper, but can I underline and write in my test booklet? Yes, absolutely. You can write anything you want in your test booklet. You can doodle, you can, write notes, and you're actually going to seal it at the end, so no one's really going to look at it unless, I don't know, maybe they need to check something out, but I don't think they even unseal it. Can you use a highlighter? Yes, you can bring a highlighter, you can bring pencils, you can bring pens, but obviously you can only use a number 2 pencil on the answer grid. So, and the reason why with the scrap paper is it costs a lot of money to develop these exams. We're currently developing mock board exams, and it is a lot of work to come up with good, challenging, wrong answers. So they don't want anyone copying, whether it's scrap paper and taking it home. So some people innocently think, they're looking at a question, it's driving them crazy. They want to jot it down to look up later for their own edification, but they don't want, you're not even supposed to discuss board exam questions after. And technically, if it was discovered, you could lose your CPC, or the people discussing it could lose it. And that's why, too, you really should be appreciative of the proctors that proctor the exams, because number one, they're doing it for free. They're normally giving up their Saturday morning or afternoon to volunteer to do this. But every time they do that, they put their own credential at risk, because if any funny business is suspected, they could potentially lose their credential. So just some things to keep in mind. But it's all about protecting the test. That's why they seal it, to make sure nothing like that happens. Okay, is it really necessary that I purchase the 2012 versions of the manuals? Absolutely. I would never recommend not. Now, they don't force you. It used to be in years past you had to. But honestly, if you're going to pay $300 some odd dollars to take this exam, why would you want to risk it with outdated manuals? Problems you might encounter, you could have a question that has a new code and it's not in your book. Or you could have the old book and be looking up answers and that code has been deleted. And you won't know because you don't have the new book. So then you're always going to be second guessing all of the questions. Oh, I wonder if that's one that's a new code. So, as far as can I suggest ways to get them, borrow them, start attending some local chapter meetings. Ask there, would anyone be willing to loan me their 2012 manuals for the board exam? So, but what I would recommend, if you can borrow ICD-9 and HCPCS, great, but I would try and afford a professional version of CPT so that you can mark it up, especially if you're using my bubbling and highlighting technique. That will really save you a lot of time. So that's my take on that. Okay, oh shoot, I meant to scan something in for this. All right, even after reading Chapter 8 in 2012, Carol Buck, I'm still getting a little stuck with essential and non-essential modifiers. Okay, this is obviously coming from one of our new coding course students, so yay. We just launched that this month, and we've already got several students, so we're very excited about that. And the textbook we use is called Step-by-Step Medical Coding by Carol Buck, so that's what she's talking about. Okay, so for ICD-9 in the index, let me see if I can pull up a tool I use here. Find a code. This is a great online encoder I like. I'm wondering if it's because it's purple and that's my favorite color, but they've got I don't want to be a guest. I want to sign in. And there's lots of encoders out on the web. You can get free passes like for a week. So, test them out, see what you like. If you're preparing for the board exam, you're not really going to need encoders because you really want to become one with your manuals. So try and use them at every opportunity. But once you get that credential and you want to do research and look up things for on the job, an encoder, it saves a ton of time. So let me go to ICD-9 here. See if I can look at an index view. Yes, I can. Great. Let me just type in A. Okay. So this isn't the real manual, but it's to give us an idea of how main terms look in the manual. So if you were looking in your index, the very first entry would be this AAT. and there's no indented codes underneath it. The first one where you see indented codes is this abasia, and we can see it's got several indented codes. I had to pick one. I can't pronounce any of the words. Okay, I can pronounce hysterical is an indented term, so that's a sub-term. Now, the question is about essential and non-essential modifiers. If it's in parentheses, it is a non-essential modifier in ICD language, meaning it's like a warm fuzzy word. If you have it, it just makes you feel better that you're in the right spot. Like this, let me find a better example that we can relate to. Okay, here we go, for abortion. If the physician stated just plain abortion, okay, you're going to use this first line here and go look at 637.9 to confirm. If he said complete abortion, you're still going to be on this line. If he said incomplete abortion, you're still going to be on this line. So these are non-essential modifiers. The physician can state the word or not. These are also referred to as qualifying terms. But if we expand this out and we have, let's see, I also don't have any codes after it. Okay, so we've got abortion with damage to pelvic organ. Okay, if the word laceration or rupture or tear is in there, these are non-essential modifiers. It's okay if they're in there, but you don't have to have them. But this indented phrase, damage to pelvic organ, embolism, genital tract, hemorrhage, these are all essential modifiers because they're indented. So in order to use the term to the right, for example, for this hemorrhage, 638.1, we have to have the word hemorrhage in addition to the word abortion. It's essential to using the code 638.1, okay? But the word laceration is not essential to coding 638.2 if we have damage to pelvic organ with abortion. So hopefully that will clear that up a little bit. So. And thanks to Find a Code for bailing me out of that one. Okay. And if that didn't help you, email your coach and she'll help you. And I know Alicia's on the line, so a shout out to Alicia Scott. She's one of our new codingcertification.org instructor coaches. We call them a coach, and she definitely is way more than I thought she was going to be a coach. She's definitely rah-rah and very encouraging. So thanks, Alicia. Okay, next question. Can you please talk about the difference between modifiers 51 and 59? I'm a bit confused on when to use one or the other or both. Okay, so what I did is I did a little research, and I'm going to use my Google Docs here to take some notes. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Okay, good. All right, so what I did is I actually went in to find a code and I just, grabbed the definition of the modifier. And this is what I do. I know previous people have given me feedback when I do these webinars. They like to see how I do my research and come up with the answers. They get as much value out of that as the answer itself. So I use my little encoder. I love using Google Docs. It's kind of like my scrap paper, and I just throw things up there, and you can do lots of things with it. And then it's saved. And if you use Gmail and you search for a code, and you've done research on it, it'll show up in your little search box. So at any rate, so multiple procedures is 51, and 59 is distinct procedural service. So what I have in green is kind of my little way of defining the modifier. So modifier 51 is what I call a volume discounting modifier, because what the payer is saying, there's multiple procedures. It's in the same session. They want a discount on the subsequent one. So on the first procedure, you would not put a modifier. On the second, third, etc. procedures, you would put modifier 51, and that would reduce the fee on those subsequent ones. So when I do my modifiers, it's all about the money webinar. I have you think about what happens to the money when you apply the modifier. So in this case, the money is going to go down. Okay? So the first procedure takes no modifier. The subsequent ones do take the modifier. Also, it's helpful if you think of this as multiple surgical type of procedures, because when I was first coding, I was thinking, so every time I have more than one line item, I need to put a 51? Well, that's kind of crazy. And no. For example, if a patient came in for an office visit and they had also rapid strep test, which would be a lab code, and maybe they had stitches. I don't know. Obviously, those things wouldn't all be done together, but there are multiple procedures. There are multiple CPT procedure codes, but what they mean is by multiple, like surgical type procedures. So there's a shared component to the work, and they're going to decrease the fee. Okay, so when I say surgical, I'm thinking of the surgery section of CPT, not necessarily major 90-day follow-up surgeries. Okay. So that's your multiple procedures modifier. Now 59 is distinct procedural service. So under certain circumstances, it may be necessary to indicate that a procedure or service was distinct or independent from other procedural services. So I call this one the unbundling modifier. So what you're saying is there's two CPT codes on the claim form. One of them is normally bundled into the other. But under some circumstances, they should be allowed to be billed separately. And I'll give you an example that I use in my modifier presentation. Code 49000, exploratory lap. That's part of many, many procedures. You need to open up the abdomen to get to other organs to do whatever to them. Oophorectomy, removal of ovary. I had that done. So they did a laparotomy, and they went in and they removed the ovary, oophorectomy. Well, that oophorectomy code that starts at the 5 in the surgery section includes 49000. But if I had it in the morning, I had some complications, and they had to do an exploratory lap later that night, then they could code 49000 because it was separate and distinct from the other procedure. So hopefully that will help with that. It is the modifier of last resort. If you actually look in the description, it says, however, when another already established modifier is appropriate, it should be listed rather than modifier 59. So for example, maybe you had similar or a procedure that's normally bundled into another one, but it was actually done on the other arm or something like that. You could use LT and RT to tell the story that they were done on different sides or something like that. So you would use that instead of 59. This is used a lot with Cci Edits. If you don't know what those are, maybe we can go over that on another call. But if you Google Cci Edits, you'll probably come to the CMS website, and it used to be you had to pay for it, but you can get them for free. You have to kind of download them in an Excel file. But they're pairs of codes, and they have these little superscripts of 0, 1, kind of like footnotes, but they're up on top, so it's a superscript. If it has a 1, that's saying under certain circumstances you can use a modifier. Well, 99% of the time it's modifier 59. If it's a 0, it's saying under no circumstance. We won't. You put a modifier on it, we're still not paying it. It's going to get kicked out. Okay, so these are tied in with that. So could you use both? Well, if we take our example of the exploratory lap with the oophorectomy, and the exploratory lap was done later in the day, you're going to have the oophorectomy code, and then you're going to have an exploratory lap. So it would kind of be a multiple procedure. To me, that's not the spirit of 51. It's when there's a shared component to the work in the same operative session. So I personally would not use it. If it was in the same session, then I would. So I'd think it through that way. And the bottom line is now the payer systems are sophisticated enough that they are going to apply 51 for you. I know a lot of the Medicare carriers do, at any rate. So, but that's the spirit of the two modifiers. I hope that helps clear it up. Let's see if I had any other notes down there. Nope, that was it for that one.